There it is.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're looking live at the Calamity Jones Hour. I'm Mandy Jones, and this is my husband.
Glenn, how y'all doing?
The return of Glen. You guys have
it's
missed
been a few
him.
weeks.
You guys have missed him. He works all the time, so we could pay for the equipment to run the show. Please share the show. Please share the show. You should be a subscriber to my YouTube channel.
Already messing up.
You should subscribe to my YouTube channel, Mandy Jones the comedian, which is up here. I always try to do that, and I'm always wrong.
The other way. It's over there.
Whatever. It is the 10th episode of the Calamity Jones Hour. We have a very special guest in the studio with us tonight. We'll bring him on in just a second. A couple of housekeeping things. Like I said, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please share the show. Please share the show. Hey, Ron Eddie, how's it going? Also, this is the 10th episode. And what's today's date? October 9th. Yeah. October 9th, guys, if you could believe that already. On October 31st, which is Halloween, which is going to be a blue moon, we're going to be having a free comedy event at this location in Deer Park. It's undisclosed. You do have to just RSVP, and that's the only, and you will get added to the guest list. No cover, open bar. There's going to be a bunch of people in costumes performing and attending the show. It's going to be nothing but fun. Comedians to be announced. We've got a really stellar lineup, but we're still adding people to the ticket, so that's to be announced. Yeah, so I think, babe, we should bring on
our
friend here. So, this gentleman found us. I'm gonna ask him personally in a moment how he found us. But this is Colonel David Lange. Welcome. So you are welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You are a colonel. How'd you get a colonel? How'd you become a colonel?
I passed the test.
What kind of colonel?
Right? Yeah, and I colonel in the United States Air Force.
Okay.
I joined the Air Force in 1984. Went to the United States Air Force Academy, graduated from there in 1988. After that, spent 30 years in the United States Air Force. So before I got to be a colonel.
That's as long as I've been alive.
I got second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, and then a colonel. So yeah, a couple steps along the way. But,
that's cool too. Yeah. But you weren't satisfied with that.
Wasn't satisfied with that. It was just kept pushing on there. No,
very cool. Yeah, so we have to, Taz, if you're watching or when you watch this, Bonnie's watching. Hey Bonnie, Taz, when you get here, it's Colonel Lange, no Mister. That's you're showing. You're actually really. You're embarrassing yourself here, and you're downgrading him.
Lange, it's Lange.
Oh, as I say Lange 5 times. Did I say Lange every time?
So it's orange. It's more.
It's
so
Colonel Lange.
It's more like orange than bang.
Yeah,
right,
I know,
exactly,
and that was in the whole. I know, and I'm like, I'm calling
you. We still do it.
I know.
We have the most mispronounced 5-letter name in the United States Air Force, so no worries.
Okay, all right.
I can imagine that, and it's probably always like the one person you can't correct. That's always like
right.
calling you in like aggressively.
Is Captain Lange there? Captain Lange? Nope.
Yeah, and you said like Lange.
Yes. Yep.
Lange like flange.
In fact, when I was in elementary school, it was funny. Every year, you start out, you'd have a new elementary school teacher.
Yes.
And they would always get my name wrong, but my classmates were so keyed in. It was like, okay, our new second grade, everyone in the cafeteria. Okay, now for this class, it's going to be David Lange. And all my classmates would scream out, Lange! So they just sort of got in the habit of that. So it was kind of funny. So it goes way back.
That's good because sometimes the kids revolt and will go get like whatever they call you. They're right, like, yeah, he's Lang Stang or whatever, like just some dumb kid stuff.
No, they looked out for me.
Yeah, and it's funny because they'd always go, oh, this is an easy one, and it was Amanda Jones. I go, oh, this is an easy one, and I was kind of like a little jealous of the kids like you that got they didn't. They'd go, oh, this is a weird one, and they'd try, and the kids like, I think think that's me because you're like around the G's and like
Right. Yeah.
I think you're starting to say my name, you know. But yeah, they'd always say, "Oh, that's an easy one." So I was never, yeah. So the Air Force. So you've flown a bunch of cool shit.
Yes, in fact, I have. Right. Yeah.
So what did you start with? What was the first thing they let you fly?
Yeah, that's a great question. Started out actually, you got some orientation flights, but the first aircraft I actually flew,
Okay.
kind of pilot-wise, was a glider at the United States Air Force Academy. And it's beautiful. We're in Colorado. You can imagine the mountains all around you.
And a glider, is that just you in there?
It's just
like
you. Yeah, they basically
Oh.
they hook you up to a tow rope, and a plane tows you down the runway, and then you're behind the.
Oh, that's how you
behind the
learn?
airplane. Well, no, because you're flying behind. They actually send you with an instructor when you start.
Okay,
So
okay.
your first flight isn't solo. Yeah, so you're up there, with a big rope, basically, trying to stay behind this propeller airplane that's
Okay.
taking you higher and higher and higher. And then when you get to a certain elevation, you pull like this red knob, and all of a sudden, silence. That's the coolest thing I remember, just complete silence. And you're up there, and the mountains all around. It's just like being a bird, and you're there, sort of flying and drifting around in the beautiful scenery of Colorado. And then you do a couple maneuvers, and eventually you come back and land on a grass field. But that was the first time I actually soloed out any aircraft on my own.
Very cool. So that's completely, you're just going by, you're gliding.
course,
You're
so
not,
you're
there's no, what if something were to happen? Is there a motor in that?
Nope.
Or nope.
No
Something
motor.
were to
No,
happen,
that's
you
the-
might get
but
hurt.
That's probably the whole point of why they have you do that first, is to
Right,
kind
right.
of get a feel
Figure
for
it
without
out
having
without
an
the-
ability to, gain altitude or anything.
Yeah,
Like,
and if
you
you-
have to learn how to.
Yeah, depending on the gliders you have. The ones we had weren't super high performance, but if you have a high performance glider, you can catch like thermals, which is like heat coming off the earth, and you can actually climb like really, really high.
Oh, that's so
and then
crazy.
the mountains have, I don't want to get too technical.
No, I love
the
this.
mountains-
Go,
the
get
the
it.
winds, go, bring it on,
Get
bring
it.
it on, Colonel. Do that Colonel stuff. So talk with the hands. So when the mountains, the wind starts hitting the mountains, it creates this updraft. So if you get on the side of the mountain, you can pick up that updraft, and again, you can sort of circle and spiral and ride it all the way up to 10, 20,000 feet or higher. Some gliders go up so high they need supplemental oxygen when they're flying. They actually have competitions that's like cross-country gliders. Who would have thought, because in my mind, it's like, well, the glider starts here and you're going down,
Yeah.
But they cross-country gliders, these people just, are very artful about picking
Yeah.
up thermals and trying to, keep their altitude. And they have such a good glide ratio, they can go vast distances.
That's
on the glider.
crazy.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's wild. I never even
cool.
thought about anything like that, honestly.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean, I've
that's-
seen the people that do the squirrel
Well, yeah, that's-
suits, like
our-
along the. You
Yeah.
ever see that?
One of,
That's
pretty
one of
insane.
mine and Sean's friends, he's an ex-special forces guy, got into jumping off of stuff. Base jumping.
Oh, like base jumping, yeah.
planes.
But
And he started
everything.
doing the glider suits, and it's crazy. Some of these videos he posts, it's
Oh
like
yeah,
On the
'cause
mountains?
Yeah,
oh,
'cause
out
they
of
do-
mountains and stuff. And
Yeah.
like you said, with that mountain uplift, he's going back up in the air. He's doing acrobatics with it.
Yeah, they're wild. They're
Yeah,
they're adrenaline junkies for sure. That's what they call that. And then so you started with the glider, and then what else did you move up into?
Then at the Air Force, the next thing I flew was a Cessna T-41, which is basically a military variant of a Cessna 172. So it's a single-engine propeller plane,
Okay.
high wing. So again, you fly with an instructor for a few flights.
Okay.
You get some hours there. Then eventually you wind up soloing that. So then I got to solo that aircraft as well. Out there in Colorado. So again, now you do have a propeller, so you can actually do some stuff. You can do some stalls and do some, a little more advanced maneuvers and stuff. And then you come back and land it. So that was really exciting. That was, one of the highlights certainly of my cadet experience was getting a solo out of a propeller plane there.
Is it something that you always wanted to do? Like you were like, I'm gonna fly planes. I'm gonna be in the Air Force. Like when you were a kid.
Yeah, it's funny. I had two tracks, like a lot of us. We sort of have different things we want to do. I was always interested in flying, and in fact, I should have brought a photo. But when I was a kid, I mean, literally like first grade period, I wrote this whole series of little books. I gave them to my mom, but they called The Adventures of Pilot Joe. And he's like, he's taking off in an airplane, but next thing you know, he's like fighting space octopuses and things like that. So but in all instances, and it starts out volume 1, he's there with his little model airplanes, and he's just so enthralled, and he wants to be a pilot. It's so funny because when I was a kid, I did the same thing. I built airplane models. So I always had that love of aviation and flying. And then my other track that I loved was animals, and especially like marine biology. So I was not sure until maybe a couple of years toward the end of high school if I was going to go marine biology track and study like whales, sharks, and dolphins and things like that, or if I was
just
gonna
like soar with the eagles.
yeah, soar in front.
I was gonna go under elevation,
Right.
below sea level or above sea level.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I did kind of have that love growing up. And in fact, the first time I was ever on an airplane, I was in New York. It was third grade. My best friend, his aunt was a flight attendant, and one day he just called up and he's like, "Hey, Dave, you want to come with me? We're just going to go to LaGuardia." And my aunt said she can get us on board a plane. And I'm like, "Hell yeah, bring that on." So we went out there, and I just remember just the thrill again of getting on the airplane, and there's no passengers on yet, so they're letting us use the make announcements on the microphone or the PA system, and of course we got to go up to the cockpit, and the pilot showed us some stuff, and they gave me like a future pilot's wings out of plastic, but I still have those. I mean, as a little kid, that's so meaningful to you. I'm like,
yeah,
wow,
yeah, I know. Well, you're a sentimental guy from what I see from your posts.
Yeah.
You're very sentimental, which is good. I think it's important to be in touch with that stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what's interesting, I mean, I want to bring up to people that you might just have found the show. Dave started watching Bonnie and I do the Wildflowers every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 on my page, or if you go to Mandy Jones the Comedian on YouTube, you can find all our stuff archived there. But Dave started watching both the shows, and it's just funny because it's an interactive podcast. So we start, shouting you out, and then we find out you're local and a vet, and it's very cool that you got to be here with us tonight. It's really cool. Like it's coming full circle. Like we've always, one of the first times Bonnie and I met for our vision of the podcast, Bonnie's like, I love the interactive stuff. I want to do the interactive stuff because she's like, it's what keeps me coming back to the podcast that I love, because a lot of the times the feeds become just you guys talking to each other. Like that's why we're calling Taz out, because she always calls you Mister, but like Glenn said, she's downgrading you. So it's really cool that you got to come out tonight, and he actually brought us a little gift, so you guys have to stay tuned to see what that is. I'm very interested. Oh, you can't give it away, like how the size of it. I don't know.
The wrapping, that's the whole fun of the wrapping, isn't it?
A bowling ball.
I know. Now I know what it isn't.
It's socks. It's socks for sure.
Socks could be in packaging like that. All right. Glenn, do you have any questions before I hog the entire hour?
We got into some of the planes.
Some of the plane stuff.
But what was your favorite car or motorcycle or something you had as a kid, or any point in your life?
Favorite vehicle.
Because that's always like a love of machinery type thing.
Yeah. It's I didn't own. It's funny for me, and this sounds kind of silly, but I mean my bicycle. I just love that. I never had a car until I was in college. I didn't have a car in high school.
So what was your favorite bike then?
It was my Schwinn Varsity 10-speed. And that was my ride all around town, everywhere I wanted to go. I was always seen on that. I loved it. I mean, I can't tell you how many miles. My parents wanted to throw away, and I'm like, don't throw it away. It's like, hey, you don't ride this anymore. It's up here in the upstairs, just taking up space. I'm like, don't throw that bike away.
And no,
that was the Museum of Dave, and that will stay in the Museum of Dave.
Completely relate to the bike being the best one though, because that was the first thing I bought for myself. Like I saved up, did chores. I wanted this chrome Molly mongoose that
nice,
like way overkill, and like they split it with me for one of my birthdays, and like that's still kicking around my house because that's like one of my proudest things. Cars,
that's your ride.
It comes to a point where it's like you gotta let go of the
car.
Yeah,
we can't have a junkyard.
But this bike, that's gonna stay at that house.
This bike, forever. We got room for this bike.
Right.
We got plenty of room. You have any other questions, babe, that you want to ask?
Well, I was just one of our.
Yeah, where the camera is. What's Andrew Fremder saying?
Andrew Fremder was saying he wanted to hear favorite car too. And he said, talk about bikes. My favorite bike is the ones I've never fallen off of.
Every bike.
Some of my favorite stories are the close calls. I'm sure you've had, as a pilot, you ever had any close calls? And I see you have scar there.
That's from bicycle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
a
plane accident.
Plane accident.
Just a little.
Well, you could have gone down soft. But you ever have any scary moments in a plane, or equipment failures, or something that really was?
Yeah, there were a couple near-death experiences there.
Near death.
It was I mean there were probably like a half a dozen. I remember the one that was most dramatic. It's funny, and I'll talk to Army veterans, and their wartime experiences are different. I mean, they're down there on the ground, the shit's pretty real, bullets are flying. So, I mean, that's a intensity. In the air, it's a lot more, anesthetic. You don't have that level
you have some time, which is probably...
but there's also things happen very quickly and can head south very quickly. I mean, one example during Desert Storm, we were flying in orbit, refueling strike aircraft. They're going to go into Iraq, and hit targets in Iraq. So we were in our orbit and where we were supposed to be, and there was an A-10 Thunderbolt II Air Force fighter that was down below, and apparently had no idea that there was a tanker like right above him. So he just was coming off a mission, and he just is, again, talking my hand. So we're flying this way. He just comes popping up like that. Geez. And so literally the entire windscreen of our airplane was filled. I saw the top of his head clear as day.
Oh my Lord.
If that had been 1 second, literally 1 second difference, we would have had a midair collision. Both of us, we would have all been dead without any doubt. Oh my God. So it was just like
that's crazy.
We just stopped. I remember no one said anything in the cockpit for about 15 seconds.
Yeah, because the life was still flashing before your eyes, and you're so thankful you're alive right now.
So during the two wars that I fought in, honestly, I was more afraid of a midair collision than I was of the enemy. I mean, there was enemy threats there, and they did have surface-to-air missiles, and there were, but in terms of, risk factor, I was really, we were, especially those days, there wasn't, most planes didn't have GPS.
Right, you're not all on each other's cell phones like you are now. You're not everyone like, hey, I'm over here. Okay,
we're flying around in the dark in a combat zone. All our lights are turned off.
Right,
because we're trying to,
be sketchy.
And be sketchy. And, most of the, all the emitters are turned off. So we're trying to be a low profile. And guys are just zipping around. And you have an AWACS flying up ahead, and they're like an airborne controlling aircraft, but they were just so overwhelmed with all the traffic out there, they couldn't, deconflict everything. So we're looking and, hoping.
Yeah, they're like, look both ways. We're doing what we can, guys.
Things are moving quickly.
Well,
I'm sure that fighter jet was coming at crazy speeds.
Well, and split decisions,
popped right up like that. I mean, just like boom, like that. It's like, holy shit, and then it's gone.
Yeah. But I could only imagine, because I've been in some car wrecks that seemed and that was at 60 miles an hour.
Right,
and it's like, I couldn't imagine when
going 400 or 500 miles
and you have a whole nother, plane that you're worried that's coming from under you. Well, you're never on the highway and something comes from under you.
Yeah, we never. I mean, if something's coming at you, you can kind of see them. And if they're coming from the side, if you're looking, but something popping up from below, you're never going to see them.
Right. Jeez.
So we just all got lucky that night. That was probably the closest call I had. But yeah, we had other times where we almost had massive bird strikes, and we had like aborts on the runway, and a couple midair, near midair.
What do you mean by bird strike?
Bird strike, if bird, Captain Sullenberger, the Miracle on the Hudson.
Yeah.
When he, in his aircraft, he had, bird strike, took birds in the engines.
Oh, okay.
Which destroyed the engines. So we had, one of those got pretty sporty during Desert Storm too. We were taxiing high speed down the runway, and all of a sudden this huge flock of birds just comes right across the runway.
Oh my Lord.
And so the pilot just, pulls back the throttles. He's jamming on the brakes. And meanwhile, we're thump, thump, thump. So we're, hear a couple of bird thuds on the jet. And so if we had kept going, we might have sucked the birds into the engines and lost our engines. And those heavy weights, because we had a lot of fuel on board, because we were a tanker. So our job was to give fuel to friendly aircraft.
Okay.
So we're like filled to the gills. We're like a giant flying gas tank.
Yeah, Jesus. So, you don't need to be going down.
Right.
It's not really ideal.
So a flying gas tank with like only one operating engine, not a great thing. So anyway, yeah, I mean, you have those moments, but again, for us, they tended to happen very quickly.
Yeah.
And actually, I think the most scared I ever was an aircraft. It wasn't even in a combat situation. We were just out in the Indian Ocean. We were flying through typhoon weather, and holy smokes, it was just so much stormy weather. And it was my job to keep us clear of weather. So I'm just left and right. I'm just jumping around all these huge thunderstorms that are part of this typhoon system.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we're up there at 39,000 feet, so we're pretty high.
Yeah.
We start getting freaking hailed on at 39,000 feet. Sounds like people banging on the top of our aircraft with 1,000 hammers. And then all of a sudden we just get sucked into a downdraft and we start losing altitude.
Oh, Lord.
And we lost control of the aircraft. So the pilots are doing this. I remember both of them looking back and like, yeah, get us out of this shit. And as soon as they said that, it was over. So it only lasted a few seconds, but it's like, sort of, and after that, everyone's sort of on pins and needles. But yeah, it was some rough flying out there in Pacific and the Indian Ocean during those times of year. But,
yeah,
anyway.
geez. And so I'm guessing you probably learned a little bit about like how storms work in terms of like what, just kind of getting a feel for it, kind of like working around that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you get a lot of, besides all, just the cool flying training, you do a lot of academics for both pilot training and also navigator training as well.
Okay, so that's
we had
part
whole
of it.
blocks about weather and understanding weather systems and all the clouds and what to look for and, pressure differentials and, winds and the impacts. So, yeah, that was one of my jobs to, like, totally understand what was happening with the weather. Because navigator, again, my primary job was, on time, on target, where we needed to be.
Right.
But also, but I was also primarily responsible for all the weather avoidance. So anytime there's weather out there, I had to replan.
Figure out where we're going.
Figure out where we're going, and you can't just I'm just gonna go where I want because you still have a time you need to be somewhere.
Right. We're not gonna take the long route.
Right. Take the long route.
No, they're gonna get their food and their gas that they need.
Yeah.
That you're bringing them.
So yeah, I mean, it's quite cool. It's like I always joked is my job was doing math under extremely stressful situations, and that's kind of what it was. I mean, I was always running, distance time problems, always running. I did a lot of separate topics, celestial navigation. I mean, back then you're using the stars and the moon and the planet to navigate by. So, and that involves math. You don't just look and say, oh, okay, here's where we are. You look, say, okay, there's the planets or here's the stars, and now I got to go back and do a bunch of math to somehow translate that into a position on the Earth, so that we know where we're at. So
that's way over my.
It's pretty cosmic.
Way over my head.
I posted a little link on one of my Facebook pages. I try to warn people, I'm like, look,
I know,
don't even look at this video unless like you're super into math or super into astronomy, because otherwise.
I know, and I actually looked. I'm like, oh, it's a 13-minute video. I got to do this when I'm not at work.
Yeah, if you get more than a minute into that, you're a better person than most, because it's pretty.
No, because what did you say? Celestial
navigation.
Yeah, right? I thought that's what drew me to it. When I saw that post.
All pilots still learn this, but now they work off of GPS, I assume.
Yeah, the celestial's gone. No one
learns that anymore.
No one learns
what
that
happens
anymore.
if your equipment
you're in trouble. The mission.
What happens when you don't know anybody's phone number?
So you're saying that because the celestial navigation, you need certain equipment to be able to, like, what did they call that thing that like Magellan had? The
sextant. And I would use that. So, I had a sextant that I used.
So they won't even have a sextant or like.
No, they took the sextants out of most of the aircraft.
Oh my lord.
That's crazy. When
yeah, exactly.
See, because that's like been like the marker for travel since it's been invented.
Since Magellan. I mean, since the
I don't know if Magellan's the proper.
The Norsemen, back.
They've all been using that.
Been using the stars since ancient times.
And it's pretty. It works.
It works. Yeah, it absolutely works. And the enemy can knock out your satellites. The enemy can jam your signals. The enemy can do an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, that's going to fry out your inertial navigation systems. But you're not blotting out the stars, or the sun. You might have a cloudy day. I've had some of those, but those will always be there in the distant sky, and so you can always use those. And that's why, again, and you're right. I mean, I do get sort of sentimental, nostalgic about certain things, but I sort of regret that skill's going going away, because
my mind's blown that they're not that this is not like
that's not a
part
good.
Of it.
It's not good. Yeah.
Okay, hoarding the bicycles may or may not be good, but losing education and going backwards and just saying, oh, this will fix it, we don't need it anymore, probably not a good thing.
I don't think so. I mean, and I get it. I don't know if you ever remember the old Saturday Night Live skit with the unfrozen caveman lawyer, but I used to call myself unfrozen caveman navigator. I try not to be that guy that's like, no, we need to go back to the old ways.
Get your atlas.
Because we have GPS and there's lots of cool systems out there now, but again, back in the days when we used to focus on the potential for all-out nuclear war, we realized that everything might be gone.
Right, we got to be careful,
and we have to be able to still get the mission done, even if computers are fried,
right?
And electronics are gone, and of course that was pre-GPS. But the GPS satellite, guarantee that's going to be the first thing they're going to try to knock down.
So let's not give them any ideas,
right?
Colonel Lange.
I'm pretty sure they already thought about that one. But anyway.
And I don't think they're coming to my podcast for how to freaking destroy the world, take over the world. That's usually not what we talk about here.
So,
but no doom and gloom, right? Fun stuff.
So, it says that here that you lived in 2 foreign countries.
So, I did.
In 10 states. Let's not.
No, but let's start with the foreign countries. So, it says you were in South Korea.
Yeah.
Where were you in South Korea, and what was that like? Were you primarily on a military base, or was it like a suburb of America, just like in Korea, or was it like?
Yeah, I spent 2 years in Seoul, South Korea.
Okay.
I was stationed on Yongsan Army Garrison.
Okay.
In South Korea. So it was an army base. We had it was a lot of, when I say joint, I'm not talking the smoke. And joint means, Navy, Marines, Air Force, and the Army sort of combined base. So we had a lot of joint presence there with the different services. So my job at the time, I was representing, I don't want to get too in detail on areas people aren't interested in, but I was representing the United States Transportation Command. I was their liaison officer to South Korea. So basically, I was coordinating all the global logistics, whether it was shipping or aircraft transportation of cargo, troops, medicine supplies, any logistics that came by air, rail, sea, what have you, to South Korea. I was helping to coordinate that. So I was the advisor to the 4-star general in South Korea, and my headquarters was actually back in the United States in Illinois, but I was their liaison officer out there in South Korea. So I did that for 2 years.
And how often did you have to go back ever to Illinois? Or for 2 years you just stayed out there?
Periodically there'd be meetings once in a while, but it was maybe every year, maybe like 3 times or something like that.
Okay.
I'd come back to the States. Most of it was done via like Zoom, but we had a secure video teleconference. So it's a little more secure than Zoom.
So you've been Zooming since before Zoom?
I know. That's why now everyone's like, what do I do? This isn't working. How do I mute? And I've been doing that for like years and years and years, except you're doing it at a classified level and there's like some angry general in the back of the room who's going to chew you out if you mess up.
And I can only imagine that, or someone,
Zoom.
the general starts getting like technologically like, a
Right.
little bit baffled. Like, I'm sure it's funny situations like that.
Yeah.
Well, you would have some computer latency. So like, and so I'm like trying to listen. Okay, what's my boss telling me? He's like, and I'm like, I'm in South Korea. I'm 14 hours different. You got me up at 3 a.m. so that you could have a meeting at a nice time in the United States, and because like 14-hour time difference out there in South Korea. So so we'd have some of the same technical difficulties. But yeah, so I'm an old pro now at Zoom, and I'm like, oh no, hit the mute button. Okay, now come off mute.
And what was the other country you lived in?
England, for 3 years in England. That was really fun because that was one of my flying assignments. My flying assignments tended to be the most fun ones.
What do you mean by flying assignment? Where did you?
Well, in South Korea, it was more of like
in South Korea, I was a staff officer, so I didn't get to fly at all.
Okay. So you were on the ground the entire time.
I was
where in England you had actual
my job
flying
was to
that you could do. Okay, gotcha.
And plan flying. So that was actually my last assignment as a KC-135 navigator before I switched to airplanes.
Okay.
So my job was to basically fly all over Europe and refuel aircraft.
Okay.
So I got to go to different countries all the time. I got to go to stage out of Italy, got to stage out of Spain, stage out of Crete, and Germany sometimes, and Norway. So we got to see a lot of Europe. And the cool thing was, you're refueling aircraft over Europe. I mean, how cool was that?
Yeah,
So that was a lot of fun.
And so you don't have to land the planes to fuel them up.
No, it's all done in the air, and it's pretty amazing. If you can imagine like a flying gas station, like suppose you pull up to your Amoco station. But now imagine your Amoco station is traveling at 500 miles per hour, and now you're driving your car at 500 miles an hour and trying to connect the gas nozzle so you're keeping it at the same speed.
I know it's amazing. I actually work in that's my day job is I work for a company that does everything for fuel management. Or anybody that's got a fueling facility.
Right.
So we work out at
So
the airports and
stuff. You
stuff.
can only imagine these gas stations going 500 miles an hour.
Yeah, exactly. These little operations. Yeah, no, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And then so there's obviously the machine, there's not people that have to get out there to do anything, right?
No.
I mean, how close do the people have to get to that spout? Like, is it literally all just machines that once you get close enough, it's like we're good?
Yeah, it's actually I'll talk. There's a couple different air refueling aircraft. Back in the day, there was a KC-10 and then a KC-135, which is what I flew. So the KC-135 then had a 4-person crew, had a pilot, a co-pilot, a navigator, and then a boom operator who was the only enlisted member on the crew. So he'd be like a sergeant or staff sergeant, tech sergeant.
Okay.
And so his job was when we were flying up in the area, he would go back to the back of the airplane and he'd actually lay on his lay on his stomach. And the boom operators always used to like to joke that, they had the best enlisted job in the Air Force because they get 3 officers to drive them to work, and all they have to do is lay on their stomach and pass gas. So these guys, great, wonderful guys. I mean, every boom operator I ever knew was just terrific.
And probably a little crazy.
A little crazy. Yeah, a little crazy, but just, great bunch of guys. So they would lay on the stomach in the back and have like a little joystick there, and they would extend what we call the boom, which is like a giant, pipe, for lack of a better term. They would lower that, and that's about, you could go from 20 to 40 feet.
Okay, so you're getting kind of close.
Yeah, they are close. So you have like a big plane. If you can imagine like a big B-52 bomber coming up to you.
Yeah,
you're flying
and
the tanker.
20 feet. I mean, guys, we're supposed to be 6 feet away from each other right now. 20 feet's not very far when you're in a big airplane going fast like that.
So the real trick is my job as a navigator to get us together. Then once we're together, I sort of back off. Right. And then at that point, the boom operator and the receiver aircraft does their thing. So basically, simple illustration is they have a little hose that comes down, and then the receiver aircraft kind of holds in a position, and then the boom aims a stick and then plugs it. And then once it plugs, they make a contact that latches.
Yeah.
And then we start passing fuel at 6,600 pounds per minute.
Nice.
Into the receiver aircraft.
And then how long would a drop take like that? Like how long would they have to fuel for?
It depends on the aircraft. If you had a fighter, typically they only wanted like 2, 3, maybe like 5,000 pounds of fuel at the most. So
then you're hooking them right up.
Yeah,
and then
so that, I mean, within, several minutes, you're topping them off. But now if you have like a B-52 bomber or one of the large cargo planes coming up, those guys sometimes want, like 80,000, 100,000 pounds of fuel. So that could be, 15, 20, 30 minutes maybe, where you're trying to keep together and do the offload.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because then you're still steering together once you're connected. Right. That's the whole, now it's your job again. Boom, boom. Right. Off now it's back to Dave.
I'm keeping us on course, but the boom operator is the guy who's making sure that the boom keeps contact with the receiver and back.
Interesting.
A lot of fun. Yeah, it's great fun.
It's super interesting. I'm glad we had John. Like I said, you're much more interesting than the comedians.
And the cool thing was, all the time you have different aircraft coming up. So if we were comfortable and on navigation and weren't worried about where we were, sometimes I'd check off and just run it back and hang out with the boom operator.
Oh, okay.
And so you'd see all these different planes. Sometimes they were, French Mirage aircraft, and sometimes German Tornadoes. We had stealth fighters in back. We had all the, the Navy aircraft coming up for fuel, everything that the Air Force, can refuel. So there's like always someone different back there. Just sort of tranquil. It's kind of cool just to lay back there and just watch the refuel. And we used to refer to it as an aerial ballet, because it almost looks like that, because it's really almost sort of
working in unison.
Yeah, working in unison, synchronized.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm gonna take a non-life question.
Yeah.
A non-background question. Do you believe in the great beyond?
I do.
Have you ever felt like you've encountered the great beyond, or do you feel like there's any way of, like, mediums, anything like that? Do you feel like there's any connection, or do you think once we leave we're off?
I do believe there's a connection. In fact, recently in my memoir I wrote, and if you read that, you'll see there's I definitely firmly believe that there's connections. And I don't, I grew up without a religion. I mean, my parents raised me with no religion.
Okay.
But I always was sort of a spiritual individual. So even as a kid, it's sort of strange. I mean, I had these, I had Mr. Invisible, who was my friend, and I sort of believed in, I didn't say God, I always said it. I believed that something was sort of controlling our destiny, and that there's some greater power out there. And I sort of, almost believed in angels. I had my little Mr. Invisible.
Yeah.
But I sort of believed that there are, entities out there that may be looking out for us or helping us. And then as I grew older, my ideas started to evolve, and, as I started to see things, learn things, and read more, it sort of became a little more focused. But really, I sort of almost have a kid's-like view of the world, I guess you could say, because, again, I never adopted any formal religion. I still don't claim one, but I definitely believe in, I'm a person of great faith, which, people don't get that. I'll say, yeah, a person of great faith. No, you're not. You don't go to church. I'm like, you can have faith, without necessarily.
You can be a shyster and go to church.
You develop your own idea of it, which is really what a lot of, there's a lot of faiths out there that would rather you create your own, create your own vision of what is your moral belief, rather than just
my belief is that God, or whatever you want to call the entity, kind of reaches out and touches us, and it touches different people in a different way. You're reached in a way where you can be reached, where it makes sense to you, and so you go with that, and I think that, God may want one person to sort of have these different sets of belief because that's going to work for them in their life.
Right.
And then, but for you, it may be something different, because that's what, is right for your life. So I do sort which is nice because in the end, I'm really equal opportunity in the sense that I really, I love all my friends and their various faiths, but and I will not get into spiritual arguments because I believe, no, you may be right and you may be right too.
Right,
And
right.
I'm not going to tell you you're not, because I believe God touches us in different ways. So, to answer your question, yeah, I mean,
that's where I was going with it, is that basically everybody's entitled to their own belief, and that creating your own belief is part of it. Like it's,
Well, yeah, and like you said, going to church, not just going to church doesn't make you the old saying, just sitting in a garage doesn't make you a car. It doesn't make you a good Christian or a good Catholic just because you go to church. Like, there are a lot of people that go just to freaking make friends and to just feel better, feel better that they went. Oh, I was at church. He wasn't at church. Oh, that's real holy of you to be judging people.
Over the years, I've been lectured quite a bit by people, and then I've seen those same people years later do some just horrendous things. And I don't judge them, and I don't, try to say, no, you're not so hot after all. I mean, that would be sort of low. Who's holier now? I would never do that.
Me with my Dave faith.
That's right, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I believe what I believe, and it's real for me, and it's kept me going. It's got me through the hard times. So I have no doubts, and I mean, I'm pretty strong in my faith, and again, I've been picked on and had people shun me because I didn't believe in this or that, and they're right, but I sort of just ignore that and turn the other way, because in the end, you have to believe what works for you.
Right, and I think that's why so many people like that go down the like agnostic or I'm going to find my own faith or my own ways. Some people get into numerology and then they'll just start seeing numbers everywhere because they're a math brain and numbers make sense to them or whatever. And like you said, so like finding the different things that
finding where you can find your morality and your faith and your I guess hope. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think
whatever's pushing you forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Going, right?
I mean, that was one of my questions. What makes you tick? How do you stay motivated?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess my faith would be part of it. I just, I have a lot of hope. I mean, I really do. I enjoy life. And I always say that, happy, I think people say they're happy all the time is, something's kind of not right with that. I mean, I have ups and downs. And,
you're lying.
We all do. But I mean, honestly, like I'll be walking down the block and you just like 2 weeks ago, this flock of geese just came flying over me and I'm just smiling. I'm like, just loving it. I mean, I start whistling and singing. And there's, just because it's cool. The world's a pretty neat place, and there's a lot of pretty incredible things that happen. There's a lot of really neat people too.
Yeah.
Who you meet, and again, that's why I like real people. People who are fake, immediately it's like registers in my head, and I just hey, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
But people who are real, I mean, I'll always give them all the time that I can possibly give them because I care about people. And that's what keeps me going too. I mean, I try to help. I mean, I see people, like your guest show on there. I mean, doing wonderful things, and there's a lot of people doing big things, and I sometimes feel bad. I'm like, well, I haven't really helped anyone today, but I think beyond just donating thousands to charity and running these things, and those are all great. I think just caring enough and helping people on a day-to-day business or a day-to-day basis, I mean, makes a difference. And that's one reason I wanted to write my memoir. It's not like I'm going to sell any books. I'm not famous. But it's really a story about somebody who changed my life when I was just at such a low point. I mean, probably the most dangerously, depressed part of my life. And just I met someone, and it wasn't, a romance, just someone who was kind to me. That's all it was. They were kind to me at a time when I needed it. And that completely changed my life.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I dedicated the memoir to her. And it was really, that story that I wanted to tell. And there's several messages in the memoir, but one of them was, kindness makes a difference.
Yeah.
If you're just kind to somebody at that point in time, and it may just be, in passing.
Right. They don't even know necessarily.
They don't even know.
Right.
But you can make a difference in their life. So, I mean, that kind of keeps me going too. I know there's a lot of people hurting, and I just, I've known the hurt too.
Yeah.
And where I can help, I try to, and that's kind of what keeps me going.
Yeah, I know that's something I struggle with, like the hurt people, because I know when I'm anxious and upset and angry, I go to below the belt and I want to be mean and stuff. And it's like, but you gotta not do that, because then no one's going to be around for you. You know, it's like.
Really, like you're saying, the greatest happiness in life comes from helping other people. Like,
absolutely. I mean, that's what I believe, yeah.
It's you could have all the things to make yourself happy, and you won't get there without really some kind of charitable, or not necessarily charitable, but calling your buddy you haven't talked to in 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or reaching out, or, you know, like you saying, like plugging Sean's show. He made an influence on you, and you're telling other people about it. And that's
it's really a great show. Absolutely.
You know, but that's what spreads everything. That's what makes people happy, is like.
Yeah, and I love the balance, because we do, you know, I try to be super silly with the wildflowers, and here we try to keep it light on the Calamity Jones Hour, and then Shawnee's talking about really serious stuff, and while they sit and talk about really serious stuff, at least 4 or 5 times they crack up, you know, because it's just two friends talking, and even though you're talking about depression and really hard things, you end up talking, you know, and the banter gets funny. But no, I definitely think the podcast has helped me. I mean, during the quarantine, all the comedy went away, all my stuff, and thank God I had the podcast, because it gave me a reason to put on makeup and not be in my pajamas, because I was working from home. So I was like not showering. I'm like, you know, but it gave me a reason to put on the show, even if and it looks like, oh, Mandy's happy all the time. No, for an hour I hold it together for everyone, because we need to have a fun show. Mandy can have a mental breakdown just from 7:30 to 8:30 anytime.
Especially at the beginning of the coronavirus thing, though, we were going stir crazy in here. It was our thing to do.
Right,
like, it was like the one thing a week that actually was like socially interactive, like beyond the two of us. And like, we were trying to bring what we could with it. Like,
I know. And then Glen ended up getting the bug. He was like, I see why you like doing this, because like he was like so tired the one day after work, you know, woke up at 4 a.m., you know, did not want to be doing a podcast at 8 to 9 that night. And he's he got like a burst of energy after he showered, because it's like, you got to be here for the people. So like, it's good that we've set up this infrastructure, because now I have to be here.
All right. Sets up a structure to our week is Wildflowers is like everybody else's Monday. Wednesday's our beginning of the week. Like that's my
Friday. This is like my third Friday of the week.
Me, that's the start of making sure the equipment's working, and that, you know, we're because that's the most stressful thing about not being here anymore. For the equipment side of it is like, I'll be at work and I'll be like, all right, I got my second to go on Facebook, and I'll be like, there's an echo, like calling people, like, you got to turn this knob on the mixer, like, you know.
But we got that all figured out.
Now what we decided to do is we've trained everyone at the house.
Anyone that lives here has to know the dogs. They all know how to run the computer.
You know how to run the board. You know how the computer works. Like you can stand in as the engineer.
Well, and then it just works out, because like then for Sean, I could do his, so he doesn't have to fiddle with it. You know, it just works out.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, like I said, you know, the podcast brought us to you. I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You wouldn't be here if we didn't have the podcast. And should we open this gift then?
Yeah, I get a bottle of water.
Okay, so now. Because what time we got here? Okay, we got 17 minutes. We got enough time to do. All right, how about what's on your bucket list?
Oh, the famous bucket list question.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's a good one, right? There's always something on there. You know, I don't know that, and I never called like a bucket list, because I figure, you know, you experience what you can. But things I would like to do.
Okay.
And I think I mentioned on one of the shows, actually, the Northern Lights. I would love to go.
Oh yeah.
On like one of those, you know, tours or something, whether it's up to Iceland or someplace.
Yeah.
Where they had like the spectacular Northern Lights, and sort of chill and just sort of see
that.
that.
I would love that. And Glenn already told me, he's like, we're not doing that. Like, you're not gonna. He was saying, like, it's so specific when you have to be there, and like you could go and like you could miss it.
Yeah.
I was like, really, bucket list, and we're just gonna know it's not happening. We're 30.
Yeah. Right.
You're just gonna rule that one out. Like, no. But no, I would love to see that. So maybe me and you will go.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And we'll take pictures and be like, yeah, Glenn, I went with the guy who went.
Fingers crossed, it's not cloudy, right? Yeah.
We're gonna go by the stars, and we're gonna be, we're gonna be in perfect shape. We're not gonna go on any of the apps about when to be there. We're gonna do it proper. You're gonna do all the math.
I've seen it a little bit from the air once, like crossing the Northern Pacific, like up over Alaska, but it was sort of hazy, and it wasn't really like the spectacular lights that you
didn't get the full effect.
The full effect, right?
I breezed by it once, but
we kind of waved, and it sort of like said, yeah, whatever, and then went on its way. And, so I'd like the full effect, and a lot of mine are sort of travel goals, really. There's places I'd like to see that I've never been to. I'd like to get down to like New Zealand and see that, and then obviously. Of course, writing's fun for me too. I got my book published, so that was, I guess, sort of a bucket list item.
Congratulations! And how can we find it? Is there any way to find it? I know you said no one's going to buy it, but is there a way to buy it?
It's actually on Amazon.com. I hate to plug books, but yeah, it's on Amazon.com. It's called Quest: My Journey Through La Mancha.
Quest: My Journey Through La Mancha.
Right. So that's the.
You're gonna have to send me the link for it.
Yeah, and actually just. I actually created my own author website about 2 weeks ago, which is getting these all new experiences.
Good.
But it's all about getting it out there.
But
that's what makes the relationship.
You have so many life experiences to talk about. I mean, hello, you've been journaling for how long?
Since 1982.
Since 1982. And that's what first drew me to I had seen your post about how important it was that you got your favorite composition notebook.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what that meant to you, but I was like, I feel him. I know exactly what he's talking about. I know the importance of the right notebook.
Right.
And then I saw more and more of you, talking about your journaling. So writing's super important. I mean, it's really good to get, it definitely helps your mind.
That was one of the ways, and I think Sean mentioned it in his show as well, that it sort of can help you through a tough spot too.
Right.
Because when you don't have anyone to talk to, or you have some issues that are just so personal that you don't feel like you can share them,
right,
you can write them. And it's almost like you're having a conversation with yourself. So my early journals, that was one of the, I told you about this person who changed my life. That's one of the first changes I made. I said, okay, I need to do some things to fix myself. I can't just say, hey, I'm fixed, I'm good.
Right.
You need to actually do some stuff. And one of them, I said, you know what, I'm going to start a diary. And I did. And I started shortly after coming back from that trip where I met this individual.
Okay.
And so that's when it started. But yeah, just a lot of pretty deep thoughts. Like, okay, here, I don't like myself because of this. But actually, maybe I'm not so bad after all. Because there's, you sort of do something.
But I am handsome.
The therapeutic side of this stuff for myself is rereading it and being like, holy shit, I thought that.
Yeah.
And I disagree entirely.
Well, yeah,
now.
I mean,
I go back and I read those old diaries, and it's incredible. I look back now, and read something I wrote when I was 19. I'm like, holy crap!
What a punk!
Yeah, I'm like, wow, and it's actually in fact, my publisher mentioned this too. She said that she sort of loved how the fact that I was actually inspired by my younger self.
Yeah,
and it's true. I'll go back and like, man, I forgot I went through all of that.
That was profound.
And yeah, I'm like, wow, and I somehow made it through that. It's like, I'm good.
Right,
if I did that, then I'm okay now. And it's sort of, keeps you in touch.
How great is it to relive that?
Oh, yeah.
In the your shoes you have now.
Exactly.
Right.
You relive that moment in a completely different mindset.
Yeah. That's somebody told me for comedy what you're supposed to do is think of your earliest memory and just start writing, just as far back as you get, because you get to rewrite your life because you're writing it from a new funny set of glasses, you know. So there's some stuff that you start looking at, wait, what was going on with that? When you start thinking about it, it's like, oh, mom and dad would say that thing, and that was, you start putting the stuff together, and it's actually funnier, and you start noticing oh, and that also reminds me of the time that this happened, and it's something that I have to do because I haven't been writing enough. So you're here to remind me that I need to write more because I know I really need to. And I think one of the things that I went wrong with the journals was I did a burn before reading, where I literally everything that was horrible is in one spot now. So maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should keep it all.
Keep it in context.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's stuff that I've definitely ripped out of journals. Like, nope, no one's reading that.
And some of my diaries is kind of funny because there's this one, like was about to embark in, there's one of my battles, which is sort of like a spiritual dedication period. I just called them a battle, but but in my diary, I'm literally writing, okay, I'm like, if you rip this page out, you are a weak ass, sorry bastard, and you will never can talk about pride or honor again if this page comes out. That's in my diary. So I read back now and I start cracking up like, man, that's pretty hardcore here. And sure enough, the page is still in there, so I guess I didn't rip anything out.
Guess I was still scared of
I'm still scared of myself. I intimidated the hell out of myself. So yeah.
Yeah, years later, I'm still shook when I read that page.
We'll just put that diary at the bottom of the stack, right? Yeah.
That's some of the funniest stuff, though.
Yeah.
The notes to self. It's like, I know I'm going to read this again later. So like.
Yeah, and the funny thing, I mean, it really wasn't. It was never written for anyone else but me. So there's a lot of notes to self. And it's kind of funny though. Then you go back and you reread it, and a lot of it's kind of touching. I mean, some of it almost brings a tear to you. I'm sure anyone who's had a hard time,
right.
When you read, your experiences, whether it was as a teen or being bullied or what have you, or your best friend sick or died or something, and you read that. I mean, it's heart wrenching. It takes you back there, and that then you really appreciate. It's like, wow, okay, you feel almost in touch with your younger self and the emotions you had at the time. And I know some people say, I'm a completely new person. I've changed my life around. I believe you can, change, your behavior patterns. But honestly, and friends disagree with me on this, but honestly, I think you're always the same person. If you're a mean-spirited, angry person as a kid, you can hide it and you may be nice to people now, but some of that's still in you. That just doesn't go away. And like the people I knew who were nice kids in elementary school, they're still nice adults.
Yeah.
And they may have got a little jaded and life may have, bopped them this way or that way, but they're still nice people.
A little cynical, maybe.
And, a little cynical, because life will do that to the best of us, right?
Yeah, but not mean-spirited.
But they're still... Yeah, they are. But I mean, they're still good people, and so I feel in touch, like a continuum, that I'm basically the same kid I was back in whatever 1972, 1982, what have you, and some of those insecurities I've had to overcome some of that, but it's still part of who I am.
Right. I mean, and you're still a sensitive person when it comes down to it. Like it is. You learn to we thicken our skins and we learn to be better, but stuff still hurts, and like you said, going back to those moments definitely could bring you.
So
yeah, I'm looking at the present.
I think it's time for the present.
Glenn, should you open it?
No, I think Mandy should.
Okay. That was his opportunity to be a gentleman. Thank you in advance for whatever we're about to open.
Quite welcome.
The socks. I'm hoping.
Yeah, the socks are bowling ball.
Oh no, this is not your book.
Or 290 pages of crazy.
Beautiful.
So there you go. Now you don't have to find it on Amazon.
But I'm still gonna find it on Amazon.
Yeah, you still find it on Amazon.
We have. I'm gonna read it. I love it.
So I hope you guys enjoy it.
Thank you.
I inscribed it for you as well.
Oh, very nice.
You guys rock, so.
Keeping it real and making it different. Wishing you both the best. Keep faith and preserve. David Lange.
Thank you very
Colonel
much.
Lange. Thank you so much.
I love having the handwriting in a book.
Oh yeah, no, I love it.
Authors will do that. They'll put part of their a handwritten note.
Yeah, and
printed sometimes in it, but to see. That's how they wrote to themselves. That's your penmanship. Penmanship is just, it's part of our expression, what we leave.
So welcome to the crazy train.
Oh my God!
Enjoy the ride.
Welcome to the family. I mean, I feel like you've been part of the Wildflowers. We call it a family because we're not joking. These people really are part of our family, and it was so awesome that you got to come and that we're gonna see you on Halloween again. So you can meet Crazy Robin DeVito, who I love, and Bonnie and all the great comedians.
The whole Calamity train.
Yeah, the whole Calamity train will be there. Because we're just trying to bring people together. Whether you perform or you don't perform or you write or whatever it is you have to contribute. And we were talking about this a little bit before we came on air. Because people are doing things and you say, oh, I don't feel like I'm doing. Oh, I guess you were talking on air too. But not feeling like you're doing things. Everybody is doing things. Glenn says, oh, I'm not creative. And then he's 2 minutes later, he's like, I wrote this poem the other day. I'm like, how are you not creative? You're writing poetry. Awesome. How are you telling me you're not a creative person? Oh, because I'm not, he's a comedian and Zach's a tattoo artist. And, it's but you create art. You know, he writes short stories and stuff. So we all have our things, and everyone should be keeping a journal to see how much better you are. Right. I mean, I really stand by that. I really stand by that. I need to have my comedy one, and then I need to have my real life one where I'm being a little more realistic with what's going on, because like you said, you learn from yourself.
You do, yeah.
And I actually had a couple things where I like wrote letters, and you realize the things that come out that you're like, wow, I didn't even realize that feeling was there until I start saying it, or you start looking into what's going on, maybe writing a letter to someone that you can't talk to. Right. You know, you start finding like it's very interesting what you can learn about yourself. So I'm really glad you were here. You honestly, when the hour goes quick, you know, you're a good guest. I know when Tony was on last week, I'm like, how many more minutes we got? No,
well, I'm just
kidding. I'm just kidding. I gotta bust Tony's chops. Yeah, because you never watched Three's Company radio show, right? You just started with the Wildflowers.
Yeah, it started. Okay. You're still called Three's Company, but
how did you find us?
I know. I was trying to remember how. I'm thinking it was probably maybe a link through the Long Island Breakfast Club. I'm a member of that club.
Valentina.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I gotta thank her. She's a sweetheart.
She is. She's a wonderful, wonderful person, and does a lot to help other people. So I'm pretty sure that Bonnie posted on the that side, and I'm like, oh, okay, that looks kind of interesting. Okay. Two good-looking blondes there, But so, you know, I checked it out. I'm like, you know, this is really cool. And then I got to realize, just like you said, I mean, it's a family. I mean, as soon as you check in, it's like everyone's like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? And at first, you know, I was like, okay, everyone knows each other, and except for me. Yeah, but like you say, with time,
but by the next episode, you'll be in. They'll be like, he's back, you know. And Bonnie's good because she'll recognize a new name. She'll say, oh, I don't know this person, and she'll specifically give them a shout out.
It's just like a group of friends hanging in a room and watching the show, and it's a lot of fun, and it does. It feels like you're hanging out with friends, so it's a great time.
Yeah, and it really has become friends. This is not a facade. We didn't pay David to go and be commenting for the last however many weeks he's been commenting and hanging with us. You know, this is not a farce here, guys. Corey's throwing loves up. Corey says you guys look fabulous. Bonnie Scalisi always put a post in there. As she says in the Breakfast Club. Yep, that's it, Bonnie. So we have 4 minutes, babe. Do you have any other questions?
My favorite ones. Let's see here. So you said you've always called New York home, as far as like even when you're deployed with the military, New York was still your primary residence.
Yeah.
So you're from Flushing. You've always maintained a residence, or when you're overseas, do you kind of?
When you're in the Air Force, you get stationed at different bases, so you're always moving and living somewhere else. So yeah, you don't come back to New York you get like 30 days of leave a year. So most of the time on my leave, you know, sometimes we do family trips, and when I was married, sometimes we'd go see my wife's family. But most time, especially when I was on my own, you know, I'd come back to New York because I was home. In fact, my room, you guys will get a kick out of this. It's pretty much frozen in time from when I left in 1984.
It's like Dan Marino.
So So I've got my Clint Eastwood, you know, Outlaw Josie Wales poster on one wall. I got my Dorothy Hamill poster on another wall. I've got all my little kid baseball trophies on my bookcase. I got
Mom, don't touch my stuff.
Airplane models. She wouldn't, you know, she will not. If I wanted to touch it, I don't think she'd let me touch it. Once, you know, Mom's like, well, you know, you really need to move your stuff out of here. I'm like, you're so right, Mom. So I got my can collection. I had a soda can and beer can collection. Beer's wasn't me. That was my dad and my brother drinking those. But so I had a can collection. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to throw out the 2 boxes from my can collection, you know. And then, so I put them out there, like, you know, to throw out. And Mom's almost in tears. And she's like, you can't throw out your soda can collection. I'm like, okay, I get it, Mom. Everything's got to go until I'm about ready to send it. And then, no, it's staying. So my childhood room that I grew up in, you know, from back in the, you know, 70s as a little kid is pretty much frozen exactly as it was. So now when I go home and I stay at home, I sleep in my bedroom. And sometimes I wake up like, oh, what year is it? You know? Is it 1978? Am I
late for school?
Am I late for school? You know, oh my God, when's homeroom? And but it's funny because it's just like it was when I left. So it's kind of enduring in a way. It's sort of fun to go back.
Mom and Dad are still around?
Mom and Dad are still around. They're getting up there. They're closing in on 90. So it's nice to be home so I can help them out.
God bless them. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Cool. Cool.
And my sister lives out in Valley Stream, so my sister and my brother's out in Staten Island. So I got family in the New York kind of area. So you know, my kids are out there. I've got brother, sister, mom, dad out here in the New York area.
Good. One last question. I think we have time for.
What you got, baby?
What?
Green. My favorite color is in fact green.
That's funny.
That's one of our. That's one of our common questions.
But purple's my second. I know you're a purple.
I'm purple.
I almost wore my purple
like
shirt.
I said, with the having handwriting, my handwriting is in purple. And if it's in the past 5 years, it's been in purple.
Cool. Yeah.
What is your spirit animal?
The moose.
The moose.
Hands down.
Why?
Oh, if you read the book, you'll find out.
But it's
a very, very long story.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad we ended on that. You got to read the book to find out. Quest: My Journey Through Lange by David.
Moose with green.
David Lange. Lange. Like Flange.
Colonel Lange reporting for duty.
Colonel. Thank you so much for joining us. It was really
so
great. It was really great. Really great.
Yeah, I've had a great time.
Thank you guys. Keep coming back. That's the show.
Yeah, that's it. Let me click the little finish here.